And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 45 of the Sling'N podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And joining us tonight is Bill Rapier of Amtec Shooting and Amtec Blades. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely, man. Happy to have you here. So, Bill, we like to start out every episode by asking our guests essentially to introduce themselves, but we have our own special way of doing it. So, Bill, please tell the folks at home and those listening on the podcast, who the hell are you?
Bill Rapier, retired from the Navy about 6 years ago now, did about 20 years in the service. Now I run Amtec Shooting, and basically mission is teach good Americans how to protect themselves and their families better. So that's what we're doing now.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, as I mentioned, and as we've gone through in the introduction, you're not only of Amtec Shooting, but of Amtec Blades. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your knives, man?
So Amtec Blades started out as conversation between myself and one of my buddies whose nickname is the Northman. And we started talking about, wouldn't it be cool to have a fixed blade knife that fit in your pocket? And we just kind of talked about, what would the sheath look like, and approximate sizes and whatnot. And then that was the end of it. So I thought. And then a few weeks later, a blade showed up, and then there was more talking, and that basically continued for about another almost year of just kind of back and forth until finally we were like, man, this is cool. And talk to him, talk to the other guys that kind of in tribe guys, and especially other guys that kind of make their living doing blade stuff, and kind of wanted to make sure that this was the right idea, and got support from everyone. Everyone said, yeah, go for it. And we did Amtec Blades. So yeah, we're on our second. We have two models now. We've got a pocket fixed blade knife, 3.5-inch blade, and then now we've got a other strong side blade as well with 5-inch blade. It's been a great tool and great addition for your combatives. Being able to draw you can obviously fixed blade draw a lot faster and more consistently than folders do. So it definitely is a capability increase having that. I carry it on my strong side. So it's one of those, if you are grappling with someone has a mount on you, right? You can get to your tools, but it's easier, right? Takes less training to just reach into your pocket and pull a blade out and go for fatal embrace.
I like it.
So it's a good tool.
I like the approach, man. So we're going to have to check that out. As always, everybody, even though they might not be there at this time, you can always check the description of this show for all the links for not just Kent and myself, but for all of our guests as well. So Bill, remind me, and we will make sure that we get not only the links to your training company, but to your blades as well. So with that, let's start to peel back the onion on what is Amtec Shooting. So what is your core focus? Is there a particular audience that you cater to? Why don't we start peeling that back?
So part of that was garbled, but I'm gonna take a stab at the part that I heard. Mission statement: Amtec Shooting is to teach good Americans how to protect themselves and their families better. So where I like to start with that is from just like every intel brief we would go to, you'd start off with most likely enemy course of action to most dangerous enemy course of action, and the truth was somewhere in the middle. Well, with training as a whole and preparedness as a whole, that's where we need to start off with. And so more likely than zombie apocalypse, nuclear war, and COVID killing everyone is random violence. So the number one way we win against that is by having heightened awareness, not just your situational awareness, head on a swivel, looking around. That's actually a lower level of awareness, but awareness as in, actually I would think intel awareness, where are the people blocking off freeways and burning stuff, and don't go there, right? Because that's always the highest level win, is to win without fighting. So awareness is number one thing. And then next would be pistol combatives, right? So knowing how to take a punch, throw a punch, clean draw stroke from concealment, combatives, weapons retention, shooting, and then other strong hand only, blade deployment and targeting. Like basically all of those things would be the stuff that I would try and teach guys first, because it's the most likely thing to happen, right? If you go to a carbine course, well, actually, most of my students probably do have carbines in their vehicle, but right, a lot of people don't. And when you go to the mall, you probably don't have a carbine slung, right? But you can absolutely have your pistol concealed on you if you live in a state where you have some freedom.
Outstanding, man. Outstanding. I like it. I really like the approach to awareness and, maintaining that intel picture, not just because I was an intel weenie, but as you said, the best victory is, the victory without having to fight. So that's an admirable approach. And frankly, in a world where people are constantly buried in their cell phones and dorking around with not important stuff when they should otherwise be paying attention, it's an essential skill that sadly is disappearing from our society. So I'm glad that there's guys like you that are still preaching that mission.
Absolutely.
But Kent, you just recently hosted Bill, right?
Yeah, I kind of backed my way into it. I got nominated to be the training lackey at West Shore Sportsman's, and as a result, Bill and I ended up talking, and he was nice enough to invite me to he had 2 classes at the facility. He was nice enough to invite me to the one he had room in as like a host slot. He'll get to experience me as a host next year because we're having him back, of course. But he'll get to see how we host at Green Mountain Defense and stay at the house and eat steak and do all that cool shit. So that's really the only difference between the 2 deals. But yeah, it was cool to have him out. It was a very anytime you can get force on force reps, like hell yeah, right? Force on force is something that's difficult to do on your own for many students, and 2 days of an integrated force on force combatives class. I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, right? Because force on force can go a couple different ways. It can turn into Nerf gun with your buddies, right? It can turn into a game. It can turn into Dungeons and Dragons with UTMs, where there's this big scenario and you're walking around and you're in the mall and you got to get $20 out of the ATM. And Tom Gresham's going to sneak up from behind you with a camera. I kid, kind of. Or you can do what Bill does, which is essentially anchor skill sets and concepts opposed against somebody else. I think that's a pretty fair description, right? Work on the skill sets and the concepts, and then try to anchor those things, or at least try to test what you think you already have anchored opposed against some pretty decent shooters and against some people who also don't want to get stung in the face with the killer bees, right? So he did a real good job with that POI, and we had 2 days, and really, quite honestly, a lot of reps for a force on force class. It's the other thing. Sometimes you do these force on force things and you stand around all afternoon and you feel like you never got to do anything. But that was not the case in this one. So yeah, it was a good class. I've got some questions for him and AAR stuff. So I might as well just get those moving out of the way.
Yeah, man, let's break into it. Take the floor.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really, really enjoyed from the course was your approach to scan and assess. So if you're gonna teach scan and assess, not have it be a range kata dance thing, right? Like there was a whole methodology to your scan and why you did what you did, and there was even vocalization to it. Hey, is anybody taking our stuff? That kind of stuff. That was an interesting approach. Is that something that you developed post mill, or is that stuff that carried over from your prior experience?
So the primary scan portion of that was something that as I came up through work, it was a Mid-South thing. It was just scan, actively hunting for targets. That was something that we always did. And then as I started teaching and thinking about it, well, to me, there was a component of it that was missing, and that was the secondary scan, right? So the primary scan is, visualize a guy just got out of a car and started shooting at you. You hammer the guy, you shoot till the threat's no longer a threat. Everyone else in the vehicle is getting a gun pointed at him, right? Because we're going to scan and we're we're hunting for additional targets to shoot at that point. Because if you're in a vehicle with someone that starts shooting at me, that was a poor life choice, right? So you're going to get a gun pointed at you. And until we determine that no, it's no longer a threat. So that would be the primary scan. My mindset is I'm actively hunting for targets to engage. And then my secondary scan is finger comes off the trigger. I bring the pistol back into a strike ready position. I start looking around and going, okay, number one, what's my family doing? Or what is my tribe doing? What are my buddies doing? What are my teammates doing? What are the random civilians that are around me? What are they doing? What needs to happen, right? And so that's where we start looking around. That's why I encourage guys, hey, make eye contact, because we don't want it to be a range kata, right? There's guys out there that teach scans, and it's like they just shake their head around like that. And what are you really doing? You're verbalizing something, but you're not actually doing it. So the way I like to verbalize it is, as I'm doing my primary scan, I will say, does anyone else need to be shot? And then when I answer the question, no one else needs to be shot, then I go, okay. I come back, finger comes off trigger, weapon would be decocked or on safe, depending on what system it is. You go back to the strike ready position. Now I start looking around. Is everyone good? And then generally, because we're on a range and our cars are parked behind us somewhere, and just again to verbalize to the guys that, hey, this isn't just a dance. When I'm checking my 6 o'clock, I'm looking at my vehicle and going, okay, is anyone stealing our stuff? Did some strange dude come up and start going through my vehicle while I'm focused on the range? So I think just having those key questions that you ask yourself, i.e. primary scan, does anyone else need to be shot? No. Okay, finger out. Bring the weapon back. Now start looking around. It just helps it stay real.
Yeah, it was I've seen different versions of what I would call a real scan, right? Where hey, tell me how many fingers I was holding up, or hey, tell me what color the piece of paper I stuck out from behind my pocket was. Or the idea being like, hey man, if you're gonna look around with intent and purpose. Your primary and secondary method of here you go, Matt Landfair, quick plug, primary and secondary. But your primary and secondary method of like, hey, does anybody immediately need this? And then what are the other things I should be thinking about? That was actually very good, and I liked the implementation of it. I liked the way it was taught. So that was neat. That's something that I threw down in my notes, and I was like, all right, I've not seen this done this way to this level before, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to jump on this real quick, because there's a lot of people in the industry, professional shooting, firearms instructors, and tactical Timmies on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot alike, that often make fun of or cast shade on the guys that the scan and assess, right? And there's a lot of credibility to the idea of scanning and assessing. Now, so I would argue more than ever. Look at the majority of, or at least the preponderance of instances where people are being accosted. There's a picture that's circling around social media right now of an Antifa member and some dude in the front seat of his car, pretty much in a Mexican standoff, pointing guns at each other.
Yeah, I saw that one.
I can guarantee you
posted that.
Yeah, he did. He one of many that posted that, but yeah. So yeah, we follow Mike here too. He's a good dude. Take for a second and think about what you're not seeing. This guy approached a road that was blocked by Antifa members. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't know the whole details of the situation, whatever have you. I'm not going to comment on that. But let's just say that did turn into a deadly encounter. That dude is now not only got to worry about the guy that he just put down, but the 10 or more people that it would take to block a highway that are standing there, probably also pissed off at the situation. So for those of you that wag the finger at people who scan and assess, pause for a second and think about what's really happening in the world today and how likely you are to be confronted with multiple threats. And
I think in all fairness to the guys that that look down on scanning, or the guys that'll say it's some sort of a range kata or whatever. Like the way some guys do it, it is range kata. And I tell guys, if you're especially like on your primary scans, if you're disassociating where your gun is pointed and where you're looking, i.e. when I teach to do that primary scan, you're looking through your sights but not at them, and you're looking for additional threats, right? So that everywhere you look, your front sight is already pointed, or your dot is already, you're looking through your dot. If you're doing that and there's a threat, all you do is finish your trigger squeeze, right? If you don't do that, then you have to do a bunch of things fast that are hard to do, i.e. shift your weapon over onto a target. Guys that haven't practiced that tend to go over travel, right? So they end up pushing past the target. And then what do guys do when they realize they're behind target or behind time? They try and pull the trigger faster, right? You never buy time by pulling the trigger faster. You buy time by being as smooth and fast as possible, and as efficient as possible with everything else, so that you can take your time, right? Always as fast as possible, but taking your time depending on the distance and the size of the target. You take your time to make the shot.
Absolutely. And that's a fair point. There are a lot of people that do teach it poorly. You're right.
I think comes from if you've only ever done a scan and assess on the square range on a line, it's really hard to do an effective one, quote unquote, safely. And I actually like the way Bill integrates that into his. That worked out pretty well. This is a good time to bring up the point of it was an awesome group on that range, right? Like there was nobody out there that we had to be worried about how their gun handling was in a moment like that, where you're teaching a purposeful scan and assess, or where you're doing complex manipulations on the line about other people. Sometimes I wonder, like you look at the XYZ handgun 101 or handgun 102 class, and they're teaching a scan and assess. It's like, man, I don't want that dude standing next to me looking around, because next thing I know, I'm going to be chewing on his muzzle. We don't.
Well, I've been very blessed with that. I've had phenomenal students. Really, I've had one or two that were a little bit that were unsafe, but no one with poor attitudes. Right? We can deal with people that don't know, right? Because we need to bring new people in and teach them. That's important. I'm fine with people making mistakes. What I'm not fine with is people that are flippant about firearm safety. I don't want to train with those people. And I think in part it's I put down on all my classes that they're physically demanding and you need to be in shape and those things. And I think to some extent that may scare off some of the the internet commandos, because I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're going to lay on most of the classes that we do, you're going to get hands laid on you at some point, not in a, we don't rough people up, we don't hurt people, but in order to teach things, sometimes you got to lay hands on people to show them, and everyone learns differently. I would say that's one of the cool things that I get to experience as a teacher now, is that, I don't have a dedicated assistant. So I grab, when we're doing combative stuff, I grab students off the line and say, hey man, and obviously guys, we've already done all the safety checks. There's a long protocol that we go through at this, by the time we're doing this, we have ensured that you have nothing on you, that will fire, that will cut, that will penetrate, so no blades, no guns, all that stuff has already been taken care of. So at that point, I'm grabbing students and just saying, okay, and starting to show stuff. And some guys try stuff because, we're all the guys that do this are generally alpha type guys. And so some guys are like, yeah, I don't think that would work. And they'll try stuff. And then some guys try stuff just because that's just the way their body goes. And so, I mean, I always enjoy it when I get that, because I get to go, oh, well, no, then I just go to this, or then I just do this. And that's one of the areas where having a grappling background has been huge, right? Having the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu, quite honestly, I would get punked all the time if I didn't know how to roll, because guys try stuff, and when they do now, it's just like, oh, I just change levels with them, or go to underhooks, or do whatever. And, but it's a good, some guys just need that in order to learn.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. So one of the things that you just brought up, and I have here notated to compliment you on, was the safety protocol for force on force was outstanding, right? Like that's a day ender for me, right? Like when force on force starts, if the safety protocol is not the way it should be, we can't continue. That shit like that can't happen. And yours and your students and the people that you had some people that are long time training partners with yours that were there, and some new people and whatever, and everybody. That I like the way that was handled, rather than trying to just control the environment. The whole, hey man, we're gonna buddy check each other every time we do a rep. That was phenomenal. That was an extra level, an extra layer, and certainly made me feel comfortable from a host or from a range perspective or whatever, that we're not going to have an oopsie out here. Besides,
that's just one of those. It's a no fail thing. You cannot, we can't screw that one up. I mean, guys have died doing force on force stuff, and they didn't follow protocols. So that's why even when it's, I get sick of asking people, hey man, safety check, lift your shirt up, let me see your gun. Right. And then, sometimes when we're using those airsoft guns, they look so real. I'm like, okay, pull it out, show me the tip of the thing. Or, if they've broken the orange tip off, okay, show me the magazine. But it's just one of those. I'd rather be a little bit irritating about doing that and annoy guys a little bit than having someone end up getting shot.
No, not at
just
all.
Not worth it.
Not at all. Although when you walked up and looked at my waistline and said, "Hey, show me the tip," and I reached for my fly, I mean, that part got a little awkward. I'm not gonna lie. But other than that, I mean, it made good sense to me.
You can't give Kent these opportunities, Bill.
Yeah, just sorry.
I don't know why everyone laughs when I say that.
They're not even bad jokes. They're just Kent jokes at this point. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the integration of the knife and the handgun, because as you saw in class, that's a weak point for me, right? It's something I haven't had the opportunity to study in great detail. And P.S., like any good instructor, I also don't teach that shit, right? Stay the fuck in your lane, that whole thing. Hashtag not Voda. We don't just make shit up and go out there. So I was thinking of this. I'll be candid and show you my ignorance. I was thinking like, okay, well, we're going to go out and put the guns on for a while, and we're going to do gun combatives, and then we're going to do knife combatives, and then maybe we'll do a little bit of integration or what have you. Your system is entirely integrated and has a lot to do with where you get locked up with a person, what hands you have the ability to get to, et cetera, et cetera. I did not realize it was integrated to that level. So where did some of that stuff come from?
Yeah. So first off, it's not my system, right?
Fair.
I mean, as I teach it, parts of it are mine, the way I show it. But the background of this stuff, it comes from Racheal. Racheal is a blade system that I've had the privilege to train with since about 06 timeframe. Solid guys. It's the most martial of the martial arts that I've trained. Martial meaning warlike. And so all the integrated stuff comes from those guys, basically. And the idea is really simple, and it's kind of it's interesting that it hasn't caught on a whole lot lately. I mean, you see all the way back like Musashi's time, right? Miyamoto Musashi using two blades, right? People have held weapons in both hands for a long time, but in recent firearms training history, like that has not been something that guys have done. Being able to deploy a lethal tool with either hand is game changing. It makes it so that on day 2 of a class, dudes are stabbing me unless I'm right with training blades, unless I am like, just if I stop to make a point, okay, guys, make sure you're doing monkey grips here, or make sure you're grabbing the cuff here, or whatever, whatever point I'm trying to emphasize. Like once guys figure this out, that, hey, I've got 2 hands and I can pull out a lethal tool with either one, it's game changing. It makes it really, really hard to beat that guy. And the technology is fairly I mean, it's really not that hard to do. That's why I teach this stuff first, because it makes you more capable. And that's what I want to do, is make people more capable, right? If we do it's kind of the opposite from the traditional, or at least the traditional American martial arts approach, which is we do a bunch of empty hand stuff. And then at some point when you've mastered all the empty hand, then we go to weapons. And that's really a horribly inefficient way. Like if you were going to teach your wife how to, or your child how to fight for their life, do they have 10 years to put into that? Are they ever going to be as strong as you? Right? Whereas you put tools in their hands, be it a firearm or a blade or an impact weapon or any of those things, put tools in their hands, and then all of a sudden they're way more dangerous right away. So we should be doing weapons right off the bat, right? Biggest bang for your buck is a firearm, right? Super, they're very simple to use. Not necessarily simple to be able to, punch a B8 at 25 or at 50 or 100 or whatever, but simple as in grandma with a pistol in her purse, like, gets respect, right? If grandma doesn't have a pistol in her purse, 5 dudes come up and do whatever they want to her. But as soon as she has tools, it commands respect, even if she's not that great at it. So we always start with we always start with awareness, and then we start with the firearms piece, and then we do the blade stuff, because the blade stuff is, again, it's the next biggest bang for your buck, right? The example I always use is if my son, who is now 10 years old, and he's starting to get a little bit of strength to him, and he trains, but if he knew all of the techniques that all of my teachers put together knew, he still would not beat me right now. Right? He could have me in any position that he wanted to, and I would still be able to just physically overpower him. As soon as we put a blade in his hand, that changes. Right? Same thing with my daughter, same thing with my wife, same thing with any, as soon as you put a blade in their hand and you teach them, speed, surprise, violence of action. We don't put the blade out in front of us and go, stay away, I have a knife, right? We conceal our tools until the last possible minute. We try and de-escalate, and again, when I say try and de-escalate, I truly mean we want to try and de-escalate. My life is better if I don't have to stab some guy or shoot some guy, right? It's a higher level win if I can win with verbal judo and walk away. That is way better for me, and also way better for the guy that thinks it's a good idea to mess with me. Better for both of us. So blade stuff is huge. It is absolutely something. As soon as you get a baseline understanding of it, man, when I get back into my car after a trip, I put a pistol on. I always put a blade on. If for whatever reason there's not a blade to put on, I feel that the whole drive home, because I'm as I'm going through parts of my circle of awareness, right, which is just that. Circle of awareness being a subcomponent of awareness as a whole. Basically, I'm checking my tools, on a almost not continuous level, but on a, from time to time, I'm checking to make sure that all of my tools are on me, right? Blade, gun, tourniquet, pockets, extra magazine, flashlight, all those things. I'm just checking, just because that's part of, just like when I was on patrol, as part of my circle of awareness would be, okay, I'm thumbing my safety constantly on the, thumbing, making sure the weapon stays on safe the whole time. And then, because I used to run a 226 SIG, I would put my thumb down on the hammer, because sometimes, inside of helicopters or vehicles or whatever, the hammer gets cocked. So, or just moving around with your gear. So I'd just set my thumb on the hammer, and very rarely, but sometimes I'd feel, oh, pistol cocked itself. Right? Or I cocked the pistol moving around somehow. So pull it out, decock, reholster, right? All those things are part of your circle of awareness.
That's fair. I can't applaud you enough for that constant checking of your own equipment. For those of you, the millions of new gun owners in the world, everybody is correct that has been so far in telling you guns don't kill people, they don't shoot themselves, right? but at the same time, there are elements and pieces of their environment, their holster, your belt, your gut, if you're in the Fat Kid Club, equipment, whatever the case might be, that has the opportunity and often takes that opportunity to adjust the configuration of that tool. So we have to be mindful of it. So excellent safety tip. And I'm glad to hear that somebody as experienced as you is still touting that. That's awesome. We are getting a couple questions in the chat though. By all means, folks, if you are paying attention and listening to us live, feel free to jump into the chat and ask a question for Bill, myself, or Kent. So the first question comes from Landon, one of the guys over at the Apache Solutions crew. So he asks, are we focused on knife first in the integration and then assessing and moving to gun, or taking whatever is available? So do you, I guess a good way to put this is, do you have kind of do you treat your gun and your knife as primary and secondary respectively, or do you assess the situation and maybe go to the right tool?
No, no, it is not. The short answer is no. It is not I start off with my fists, and then if things get a little bit worse, I grab a blade, and then if things get worse, I grab a pistol. We should not think of ourselves as, well, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, or I'm a wrestler, or I'm a blade guy, or I'm a gun guy. You should be, I'm a whatever it takes to win guy, because that's what this is about. This is not, whose kung fu is cooler. This is about, if you get this wrong, you die, or even worse, a member of your family dies. So where the level we want to get to is where we draw the tool as situationally appropriate. Just like when I talk about targeting, with both, pistol or blade, you're always shooting or stabbing at what is situationally appropriate at the time. So, and a lot of times that, the context that we're throwing out there is stand-up grappling range, right? If you're in stand-up grappling range and someone is trying to grab your pistol, you can do what is commonly taught in law enforcement today, which is put both hands on your pistol and circle away from your threat. Or you could place your forearm on top of your pistol and anchor it in place and draw a blade and stab them. And you can teach that to, a 130-pound girl can do that and beat me. So, I mean, it's whichever hand is free draws a tool. And then another SIOC concept is always going for better weapon, better position. Right. So if my right hand was tied up, either getting under hooks, pushing someone back, checking someone else's gun hand, and blade came out first, well, I'm probably, if I just stab someone, I'm probably still going to pull a pistol out, because if I've now cleared, have a little bit of space, well, most bad guys work in groups of people. So I would rather have a projectile weapon in my hand. Right. I can do work at a lot further distance with a pistol than I can with a blade.
Right. And would you, I've heard this said before. I'm curious if you would agree that while often more visceral or damaging, very much like the pistol, the knife is not very good at incapacitating or immediately neutralizing a threat compared to a gun.
When we talk blade stuff, it's targeting. We've got timers and switches. Timers are arteries, organs, and veins. Switches are nerve bundles, connective tissue, things that hit a switch. Right. With gun stuff, if you shoot someone in the lung and liver, it's not a switch. Right. That guy's going to die from exsanguination. Right. He's going to bleed out and lose blood pressure and fall over. So it's not an immediate thing. If you shoot him in the ocular cavity, it's lights out and he falls over right away. With a blade, it's harder to access some of those ones, although there are switches that you can hit with a blade that will put the guy down. I would say now that I've been doing this for a while, if you know what you're doing with a blade, you're just as likely to kill the guy. If I can stand there and put my arm on you, just as likely to die, blade or gun, doesn't matter.
Right.
And it's not hard to get a guy to that level.
No, fair. And speaking to that level, a question from Bullet Sponge, could the combatives curriculum accommodate a total newcomer with physical limitations?
Can I answer this?
Go ahead, Ken.
Please do.
Yes, Justin, you're not nearly handicapped enough to not be able to do what I did for a weekend with Bill. Stop it. Your limitations aren't as bad as you make them for yourself, and I love you. So next time he's here, you're taking a class with me.
No
that?
excuses.
There's your answer right there. Train.
Yeah, bro. You can absolutely do what I did without hesitation. Might take you a minute, but shit, it took me a minute. Bill beat me with a baseball bat all Sunday afternoon, and I was fine. I mean, he made me the bad guy, and every time the students would walk away, he just fucking kneecap me with a ball bat. It was terrible. But I got through it. Now, dude, you'll be fine. Get out here and let's do this. Absolutely, 100%.
The yellow wiffle ball bat of justice.
No, it was a freaking like Louisville Slugger with like barbed wire and shit. I was really mean. He just pulled it out and took it for me. But, no, man, you can absolutely do it. Not even a question.
Awesome. Great questions, folks. As always, please continue to throw them our way in the live chat. We'll be happy to curate them for Bill. But Kent,
oh, crap. 2 of my handicapped students are in the chat at the same time. That's hilarious. Yeah, you too. Yes, both of you. You're both coming. That's it. Cool. So let's see. That does bring up a good question, though, which is what level of combatives knowledge does somebody have to have prior to this class?
I would like to have a student that can safely draw and reholster and not sweep people. If you can do that, you can come and take a class with me. I've had people worse than that. So it is I do pistol fundamentals in every pistol course that I do. And I've had guys tell me, one of my buddies, when I first started this, he goes, Bill, don't say that you do pistol fundamentals because everyone thinks they know pistol fundamentals. And I bring that up many, many classes and just say, guess what, guys, we're doing pistol fundamentals now because there's no magic to any of this, right? Being able to shoot well is a matter of having the pistol fundamentals down at a unconscious competence level, right? And just let's touch on that real quick. So when we first start, we're at an unconscious incompetence level. You don't know that you don't know anything. Then you start to train a little bit and you realize, man, there's this whole world of stuff that I don't know. So that's what we call a conscious incompetence, right? You just started rolling for a few months and you're like, man, I really suck at doing jujitsu. Okay. Like that was your first step. You realize that. Then you keep progressing, you keep training. And now all of a sudden you can do what you need to do if you think about it. That's conscious competence. Okay, I stare at my front sight. I slowly squeeze the trigger. I dig in with my toes. Squeeze, bang. Wow, I hit. Right? That's conscious competence level. Where we all want to get to is unconscious competence. You decide that needs to get shot. Bang, it gets shot. You don't have to. The part you have to think about is, does this need to happen? And then everything else happens unconsciously or subconsciously. So that's the point that we want to get to with all of this training.
Absolutely. Two of the folks in chat are speaking specifically regarding lower extremity issues, and I have one of them I know personally, and he's got some neurological things that can cause difficulties with his legs.
So my goal is always for guys to leave stronger. So whether it's, if you have issues with whatever, you can't walk correctly, or I've had people in wheelchairs do classes, like we can figure some stuff out. Obviously, if you're in a wheelchair, we're not teaching how to do double leg takedowns, right? But there's other stuff that we can teach you how to do, specifically around those physical limitations. So don't think it's, people get scared by the word combatives. People think, oh, we're going to throw boxing gloves on. And I mean, I actually say in my mindset talk, like, if you've never been punched in the face, you should join a boxing gym for a few months and get punched in the face just to realize that it's not a big deal. But that is not what my classes are about, because 2 days of boxing training doesn't do a whole lot for you, right? 2 days of integrated combatives will give you a higher level. And it's not going to be the same for everyone, right? As we get older, all of us, our physical bodies deteriorate. right? So we have to compensate for that with heightened awareness, potentially increased willingness to use tools, right? When you realize that, okay, I no longer can I change levels and stop this guy from taking me down, right? That means, okay, then there's potential that this guy's just going to beat me to death, which would probably mean if this happens, I can't let this guy take me down anymore, right? So your willingness to use force is going to go up. I mean, this is women get away with, female cops shoot people that if their male counterparts shot them, like a jury would go, no, you were not in fear for your life. 220-pound guy, fighting a 180-pound guy. 180-pound guy is the suspect, and the guy goes to guns. That's going to be much harder convincing a jury that the guy was in fear for his life versus 130-pound girl and she's getting worked over. So it's the same as we get older. It's going to be the same thing. We all get weaker and weaker until we die. So we need to make sure that we train as hard as we can to keep as much strength and be as physically strong and capable as possible for as long as possible. But I mean, the reality is we're all 40, 50 years out right now of being in the dirt. So let's you have to think through that at a certain point, right? Like older women, no, you don't need to learn how to grapple and do a bunch of other stuff, like, because you're not going to ever get to that point where you do have a level of capability. You need to have awareness and be ready to produce tools.
Awesome. So you kind of segued a little early for me, but I'm going to go there now. The mindset component of this course was enlightening and handled a little differently than I've seen it handled in a couple other places. And specifically, if you don't mind me sharing a key component of the mindset talk, I really liked, because I'm a new dad again, sore subject in my life, but the whole your kids should not see the expression of your pain thing that you went into was something that really kind of got me specifically. Would you mind sharing a little bit on that on here? Is that all right?
Yeah. So this gets into a little bit of I wrote an article on it, but basically it's, as men, we should not show emotion to physical hardship or pain. And before you turn it off, I'm not saying you should not show emotion, period. Your life will be horrible if you never show emotion. You should absolutely show the joy, physical affection, love, empathy, all those things. You should absolutely show those. Those are good emotions and you should show them. But your kids shouldn't hear you go, ow, that hurt me, or I'm cold, like whining, complaining type things. Your kids shouldn't hear you do that. And it's important on a couple different levels. And I'll give a couple examples for it. So the one, I believe this happened in 2014. I may be off on the year, but it was at a range in Florida, and a father was shooting at an indoor range with his son, and he was on the far left lane, indoor range, and he's shooting away. His son is behind to the right of him, and at some point, one of those pieces of brass bounces off the wall and goes down his shirt, and his response to that pain is to reach back, like, to kind of shake like this, to flail, and he pulls the trigger and he kills his kid. And that's one of the worst possible things that I could think of. And I don't think this guy was weak. I saw some of the statements that he made afterwards. So they lead me to believe that the guy was actually, not a weak guy. He just hadn't thought of it. No one had ever told him, hey man, like, don't do that. And so what I try and encourage guys to do is, next time, right? And I joke, I say, hey, it's shameful if you do the brass dance, right? If the brass goes down your shirt, you're jumping up around and, doing all that stuff, right? I just say, hey, it's shameful. And in part I'm joking, but in part I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. Right. I've done the brass dance before. Most of us that have trained for any period of time have done something along those lines. But right now, as you're hearing this, you can make a decision, whether or not you are going to do that next time. So what I tell guys is, hey, you should let it burn. Make the decision right now that next time that piece of brass lands on your neck or lands on your arm and you're shooting, right, it should just be like a normal mental reset while you're shooting, right? A mental reset happens anytime you go miss, half breath in or half breath out, front sight squeeze, bang, right? Dig in with your toes, all those little cues that make you hit again. That's what you should do, and let it burn you, and be proud of the fact that you're man enough or woman enough to fight through that. And you might flinch a little bit. That's not a big deal, right? The little bit of flinching is it's good that we have that, right? It's what keeps us from burning our hands really bad. So you might move a little bit like that, but then after that happens, just go, okay, yeah, that doesn't feel good. It hurts a little bit right now, but I'm just going to keep training through this, and you will be better for it if you can do that. So, yeah. So there's a reason why you should not show physical emotion, or you shouldn't show emotion to physical hardship or pain.
Yeah,
that's a powerful example. I mean, aside from the absolute tragedy that kind of spawned that, there's so much to be said about just the statements that you just made. Where can people go to find that article that you wrote?
AmtecShooting.com.
Okay.
It's under articles.
Yep, I see it right here. So, folks, encourage you guys to go read that. I know I'll be reading it to get deeper into the mindset that is Bill Rapier on this topic. But yeah, so amtecshooting.com/articles is where you need to go.
So real quick, along the lines of things your kids should see and should not see, Special Biscuit, who has the honor of not knowing the difference between Lebanon and Philly. Love you, dude, but you're killing me. Don't ever ask Special Biscuit for directions, ladies and gentlemen, or you'll end up in the wrong part of town. Anywho, he's wondering, what age should you start your children in the world of firearm safety, mindset, defensive, combatives, etc.? At what age is the right age?
I think as soon as you start doing any kind of correction training with the children, firearm safety should be brought into it. As soon as you're telling your kids no, and there's a corrective penalty for what they've done, right? When your kid is old enough to willingly disobey you, you should start introducing gun safety. With us, it's never something that the kids aren't allowed to see or talk about. It's always if I'm doing circle of awareness, or if they see me with my tools and they say, hey, Dad, can I dry fire? Absolutely. Right. We'll go to a spot where it is safe. I will clear the pistol out, and then I will hand a cleared pistol to them. And then they will go through a clearance procedure on the pistol. And then they'll go through and then I'll ask them, what are the 4 fundamental rules of gun safety? They'll tell me what they are. And then we just go through some dry firing, right? What are we doing? Get good aggressive fighting stance, dig in, think about how would you stand if you were wrestling right now? And we just go through, fundamentals of shooting, and they'll get some dry firing in, and then we're done. I think overall there's a tendency in our society right now to try and shield our children from anything bad. And obviously there's a lot of things that are really bad and that are inappropriate for children to see. So I'm very, very careful to keep that kind of stuff from my children. But when it comes to the fact that there are bad people out there that want to hurt them, no, that's a pretty cut and dried thing, right? I mean, God is ultimately in control, but he places mothers and fathers in place to help protect your kids. And the more the kids get on board with that, it's actually very reassuring for the children, right? Kids are very cut and dry, very black and white. There's bad guys out there. Okay, check. God ultimately in control, and then mom and dad to help them. Those are the things that help protect us. It's a very, very cut and dried type thing. And then from there, you can go, down the road of, with my sons or with my daughter, we'll train sometimes. A lot of times if I'm working out and they come, just short things. Don't think, okay, we're going to do an hour or 2 hour session with your kids, because they don't have the attention span to do that. I'm generally this would happen for me on like a strength day. I'm doing, rotating through, doing some squats, doing some pull-ups, doing some ring dips, doing some kettlebell swings, mace bell swings, and whatever other things I'm doing for strength. And then on my breaks, I'm drawing my cert pistol, doing template work with the blade, get off the X drill, like doing all the, and honestly, like a lot of times I do, curriculum development while I'm doing that. So if while I'm doing that, one of my kids comes up and is watching me, I'll just grab them and, put a sword in their hand or a blade in their hand, or give them a cert gun, or have them do a circuit with me and have them do some training, as the kids will, they'll pick up on it. And honestly, you will gain a lot out of that as well. I mean, I did some stuff last year with two of my littler boys, and we ended up just doing team fighting, right? I had my Bob standing there and I'm just working stand-up grappling with Bob, working some strikes, basically trying to control the Bob. And the Bob is a stand-up striking dummy for you guys that don't know. Phenomenal training tool. So I'm doing that, and my boys are hanging on to my belt line like we're in a melee in some sort of a fight. And it's a great rep for, both, for father, son, and then also for, the boys. Just, we get to move together, we get to practice, and they become more capable. And then when they become more capable, all of us become more capable. Our family becomes more capable.
It was certainly enlightening. There was also some discussion regarding working out in advance what you as a unit or a team might do. And before anybody wants to like jump down my throat about this or whatever, I don't mean I just mean a family or a group of friends or people who are going to spend time together or what have you. There's some considerable time devoted to pre-discussing, to borrow a military term, ROE. Like what are we okay with? What are we not okay with? What are we willing to do? What are we not willing to do? And some, violence of mind. I've been reading Varg's book recently, Violence of Mind, and some of the idea of, have you worked out in your head what you're willing to do before it's time to do it? Some of that kind of stuff. And that was really, it was interesting to hear a couple of different perspectives. And there were some other training partners in that group who were quite apt at putting a very fine point on some of that stuff. And that was worth the price of admission, just to sit around for that. I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour or whatever we talked about that kind of stuff. It was highly valuable for sure.
Yeah. And that class in particular was great because we had Tom Kyer, who's one of the senior guys in the SAC system. He's been a friend and mentor of mine for a long time now. But yeah, he was there, and I tell guys at the beginning of every mindset talk that I do that it is not my mindset talk. The mindset talk comes from a bunch of guys. But Tom Kyer has had the biggest input into the mindset talk. So the way I give it is mine, but there is a long lineage that comes with that. And what you're referring to specifically is the readiness formula, and it stands on 3 legs. We've got awareness, and we have willingness, and then we have preparedness. And if you're lacking in any one of those areas, your chance of failure increases. And so specifically the willingness portion of it, I really believe is the most overlooked in probably the demographic that we're talking to right now, because it's the same demographic of guys that come and train with me. It's the, when am I willing to go to guns? Is it immoral to kill someone at any point? right? Is the taking of all life immoral? For who am I willing to go to guns? Right? Yourself, your wife, your children. How about your neighbor's kids? Random person on the side of the road, their kid. Random person on the side of the road, adult. Like, all these things are willingness questions that you need to work out, because if you don't work out your willingness beforehand, you end up with regret in life. Either regret because you didn't do something that after thinking about it, you should have done, or regret because you didn't do something that, or because you did do something that you should not have done, i.e. you saw red and just went aggro on someone and they died and now you go to jail. Whereas if you would have thought about that beforehand and gone, okay, what is my willingness if someone insults me? What is my willingness in a road rage incident? Am I willing to eat a slice of humble pie because I know where this goes if we start violence? So that's a huge thing to think through individually. And then with your wife, then at a certain point with your children, as it is age appropriate for them. And then also with your tribe, right? With the people that, and again, for people that are saying, oh, well, I'm not an Indian. What are you talking about? Tribe. If your house burns down tonight, who are you calling? The people that you are thinking about calling are the people that are in your tribe, and you should be deliberate about forming bonds with those people, because bonds don't just happen, right? Relationships don't just happen. They happen because we have shared worldview, number one, common interests, shared hardships, right? That's why military guys are tight 20 years later, because they did a bunch of stuff that was less than fun together. And then they can look back on that and go, oh yeah, I remember when we did that. So shared hardships, and then also just shared food, right? Shared food. And if you can, hang out around a fire. Like, all of those are the things that build bonds between men. And you should be deliberate about doing that, because this whole, the concept of, oh, I'm a lone wolf and I don't need anyone else, is fantasy. We all need people.
Absolutely. So, you brought up the shared food and the shared bonds and so forth. One of my favorite parts of hosting training and putting on training myself and being a part of the training community, and this podcast, right? There's literally 30 some people on here who are all interacting and enjoying themselves, etc. I've been continually and extremely blessed by the people that this endeavor has exposed me to, right? Some of the best people in my life. TJ is my best friend in the whole wide world right now, and he and I are together because of guns and training and these kinds of shared experiences. This is exactly what we're here and what we're going for. And it was neat to come into your, I was just you guys could have easily just been like, oh, that's just the dude from the range. He's here to make sure the targets are up and, make sure the shitter's open for us or whatever, right? And instead to have invited me into that, and then for me to have had the opportunity to bond with a couple of those students to the point where, they've already been to my house for supper once. Much appreciated, much respect, and that was probably my favorite part of the whole weekend, right? Because it always is.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of really good friends now through doing this. I had no clue what I was getting myself into when I, a couple months out was like, or, the plan was formulating maybe 9 months out from retirement of, okay, yeah, I think I want to train people, because I enjoyed it. The last 2 years I was active duty, I was training guys, on a smaller level, and I enjoyed doing it, and people were telling me that I was good at it, which was encouraging, and now I really enjoy it. I get to go around my normal, Saturday night when I'm out during training classes, I'm hanging out with solid dudes, and we're having meaningful conversations about things that matter, right? When people say don't talk about politics, religion, or war, it's like, those are the things we all should be talking about, because they're the only things that are important. All the other stuff is fluff.
Absolutely.
So we got another good question from K9 Ron here in the chat. He wants to know how dot life is treating you. Is T&E on the red dot?
So I'd been pretty anti.
Yep.
And my
Boo.
reasoning for that was,
Boo this man.
Yeah, well, let me finish. I'd been anti because, I mean, what is a handgun for? For the most part, it's for stand-up grappling, slightly beyond it, inside a 25-yard bubble, basically. My concern, and it's still the thing that I think is the biggest detriment to the dots, is for non-standard shooting positions, right? So you find your dot 99.9% of the time when you stand there on a flat range, like you always do, and you draw and you present. But when we watch videos of guys shooting pistols, when other people are shooting back at them, they don't always stand that way, right? There are guys are leaning over, making shots like this. They're making shots right here out of their vehicles. And it is more challenging to find your dot, or it can be more challenging to find your dot that way. Last September, I committed to run a dot gun for a year as professional development, because there's some guys that I respect in industry, Bill Blowers being one of them, that basically they're, a lot of guys are starting to use them. So I was like, okay, I'll run a dot gun for a year and then I will decide, right? I mean, that's, I kind of said the same thing about shooting from your other strong shoulder. When I first saw guys doing that, I was like, that's stupid. You'll never be good enough to do it. And then I decided, you know what? I'm a professional. I'm going to learn how to shoot off of my left shoulder. And then after I've mastered it, then I'll decide whether it's stupid or not. And now I do shoulder switches all the time. So with the dot, it is stupid easy to shoot accurately. Like it's ridiculous. It takes away 50% of what you have to do. Right? When you're shooting, basically once you get past the point where you do sight alignment naturally, you focus on for normal, 25 and in shooting, all you do is focus on your front sight and squeeze the trigger. That's two things that you have to do that are, if you screw either of those up, it's likely to cause a miss. With a dot gun, you just have to pull the trigger. And that's huge, right? Because you can stare at your target and superimpose a dot. So it is definitely easier to shoot that. Now, the drawbacks with the dot gun, it can be more challenging. Whenever I do like this shot right here, and I do this every morning now as part of my dry fire ritual, is I do non-standard, shooting angle. I call the drill around the world drill, where you do a left turn, and then you do a bunch of different presentations, and then you do another left turn, you do a bunch of different presentations. So you're constantly learning how to make that shot and make that shot right there, which is especially applicable for vehicle type things. When I hunt for my front sight first, especially on these weird angles, the dot's always there. When I just try and present on a non-standard angle, it is there most of the time, but not 100% of the time. It's getting better as I do this more, and I'm doing this every morning now as part of my training ritual. Is I'm doing presentations like this. So on that, I still think it's kind of a 50-50 for that. For low light, it's phenomenal. So some downsides, they're not as reliable as I would like them to be right now. I'm running an acro and I've broken 2 of them. I still think it's the best one out there right now, but and I wasn't smashing things with it. I just, I have one gun. I have a teaching gun. That's it. Teaching gun is the same as my carry gun. I replace it about once every year to year and a half. So I've broken a couple of them. I've run RMRs. I ran a Type 1 RMR. I had problems with it flickering. I put the plate underneath it, and now actually, before I put the plate underneath it, it would just turn itself off completely. With a plate underneath it, it will bump a level down during dry firing, which is workable. However, any of the single paned ones they fog up more, and you can get water into the emitter. So I'm pretty sold on the fully enclosed, the Acro, and then the Holosun, the 509T coming out. Will be interesting to see that one because it's going to be significantly cheaper than the Acro is. I'm looking forward to running one of those. But I've had the RMRs fog up on me to the point where I had to wipe them out before I could even use my iron sights. Training in 40 degrees and raining for 2 days straight, and that's coming from concealment the whole time as well. I've also gotten enough water into the emitter to where I couldn't see my dot. Right, I just had a buckshot pattern. So there are pros and cons to it. I'm a proponent of dots right now. I think the technology will come along, like they will get more reliable, the battery life will get better, and just for how much easier it makes it, right? If I can focus 50% less and still shoot with the same level of accuracy, like that's game changing right there. That means I can be doing other things. It's just, the first couple times I taught with the dot gun, I did the accuracy demo, and I'm just laughing at the beginning, or I'm laughing to myself because it's so much easier to do that. I do believe that you should have your backup iron sights. I always glue my backup iron sights in because I've had front sights come out before while shooting. So I always Loctite them. I slather the front sight post in Loctite. Currently I'm running the Ameriglows with the tall tritium front post as well. I do believe that you should have tritium in there. It does not interfere with me when I'm running just low light stuff. If I'm running night vision stuff, I'll cover up the tritium dots because it will interfere with your nods. But on a completely blind presentation, right? If we turn off all the lights and you grab your pistol off your nightstand and you present, if you have a tritium front post, you can drive off of that front post. So I'm a proponent of, I think you should have that on there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Bullet Sponge asks about front sights flying off. Yes. If you shoot enough, even irons will fail you.
He's joking.
I've had it happen. I've had it happen to me actually, shooting a Mania at Mid-South with students. I draw and I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting, right? No front sight post. If you use, I normally use blue Loctite when I put them in, and I slather the bottom of the actual post and everything else in there, and I crank the thing down. I have not had one come out on me yet that I've Loctited in place like that. So I would recommend doing that.
He's joking because he borrowed a G17 that I have all done up during a class, and the front sight hit him in the face.
It happens.
It happens. It absolutely happens. So let's see.
Consider yourself christened, Justin.
Yeah, really. H-Heck 3? H-Heek 3? I don't know.
H-Cheek 3?
I need a red dot because I'm blind as shit anyway. Thoughts on training priorities outside of firearms and blades?
Fitness and spiritual. We're all going to die, so we need to get that right. Be right with God. That's the most important thing out of all of this. Next would be the physical component, right? It's why there are weight classes, right? We want to be as healthy and as strong and as fast as possible because it matters. The healthier and stronger you are, your quality of life is better. You can play with your kids better. You can move. A lot of times problems are solved with movement, right? Oh, there's 50 angry people throwing bricks walking down the street. Let's run away from them, right? That's again a higher level win than even if you have the ability to burn all of them down, your life is going to be a lot better if you run away.
There's a reason the first rule in Zombieland was cardio, folks. Come on.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, TJ. So I don't want to take you too far down a rabbit hole that you don't want to go down, but the spiritual stuff has come up a couple times just tonight already, and it came out a couple times throughout your training. And I just, you don't even have to reply to this if you don't want to, but I just want to commend you for being willing to put your beliefs out there and not shying away from that stuff, because a lot of folks do that. So for what it's worth.
Well, guys, I mean, if you're opening the platform here, I will hop in, because ultimately, guys, so I'm a Christian. It's the most important thing in my life, following Jesus. Some people think that sounds like crazy talk, but if you what is your 50-year plan, right? I'm 43 years old right now. In 50 years, most likely I will be dead. So I asked what's the truly long-term plan? And there's a lot of bravado, that goes on right now, especially within the firearms community of, till Valhalla and, okay. Like if you really believe that, okay. But, we need to be right with this, not just, it's not just whatever I believe is right. Like it needs to actually be right. So I always encourage guys, hey, look at the person of Jesus Christ. Look at the claims that he made. Because as a Christian, we can have what I would say reasonable faith. Our faith is based on some reason. At the end of the day, it still is faith, but it is the thing that has allowed me to do scary stuff over and over again, is, having that assurance of salvation through Christ, right? Not because of what I did, but because of what Christ did for me. So that is ultimately the most important thing, is to get that right. Awesome, man.
Well, thank you for being willing to put that out there. I myself am too much of a Christmas and Easter Christian. Although there's at least one gentleman in the chat right now who was a counselor at a Lutheran youth camp with me back in the day. So there was a part of my life and a time in my life where I put more emphasis and more effort into that than I do currently. Call it a weak point, if you will. But man, we've been at this now for pushing an hour and a half, and it's been a great conversation. And it's always cool to have such an in-depth, lively chat group here. So cool, and I don't have to reach into my bag of questions because dudes are out there putting them up. That being said, Bill, we want to give you the opportunity to say the thing that, like, whatever the thing was that you wanted to say when you got on here and nobody asked you yet, and to, of course, plug yourself and do all the capitalism and all that stuff. And we'll slowly move to close out the show here. So what didn't we ask you?
Yeah, well, guys, what did we not talk about?
Yeah, what didn't we ask you that we should have thought
of? When the next training class is.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, I mean, that's come train, guys. That's the, whether you train with me or you go train with someone else, like go train with Kyle DeFore, go train with Sayak, go train with someone that is serious about their training, and become more proficient. If you want to learn more about, me or Amtec shooting, Amtec shooting .com is our website. Amtec Blades is our other website. That's where we sell all of our blades out of. So, check us out. If there's ever anything I can do, especially for any students that are listening, this is what I do. So, you guys feel free to reach out to me. I get bogged down with emails sometimes, but if you do, generally I get back to people. If you have a question about something, I'll email you. And I just encourage everyone come out and train. Right? It's not, you don't have to be amazing at doing this stuff to get out and start getting better, right? I mean, we all start at a level of unconscious incompetence, right? And then if you have decided you want to train and it's worth, investing time and dollars to train, then you're probably either at conscious competence or at conscious incompetence level, right? You recognize that, hey, this is something that I need to do, right? And so it's just take the first step, get out, do some training, get some fitness in, right? Become more capable.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start ending with these two questions because they're two really good questions. So first one is give me a reading recommendation. Give me a book that I should be reading that I haven't read yet.
You're freezing up on me here. I didn't catch any of that question.
Oh, reading. What should I be reading? Give me a good book.
Bill, can you still hear me?
Yes, I just heard that.
Okay.
But I'm not hearing a whole lot else right now.
Okay, so I will relay for Kent. So he wants to start rounding out the show with two questions. The first of which is, what are your reading recommendations? What's a book that we should all be reading right now?
The Bible, number one. I read everything on my phone now. Stand by.
Standing by. Kent, why don't you try say something so we can see if Bill can still hear you?
Can you guys still hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I still
read any of Jack Carr's stuff. Jack Carr, former team guy, writes some phenomenal novels. So it's very, very rare that I read something that another team guy has written. I've really enjoyed his books. He's got 3 different books out now. The first one is Terminal List. It's basically this guy's troop gets wiped out and he makes a list and goes hunting. It's pretty awesome book. You should definitely Jack Carr. I've really enjoyed listening to his. I listen to books now most of the time. I fall asleep when I just read books, but I listen to him. So he's a good. So the Bible and Jack Carr's books. That would be my current recommendation.
Sweet. I'm assuming you can hear me now, right?
So and now you look like you're back now. You froze up on me there for a sec.
Okay. So what about your favorite charity?
Voice of the Martyrs.
Okay.
They work with the persecuted church across the globe. In a lot of the Islamic countries, a lot of the places where it is illegal to proclaim the gospel, they go in there and they help the believers, and also they help the believers to be able to evangelize more. So Voice of the Martyrs, phenomenal organization.
Very cool. So,
real quick, for those playing the home game, I will put links down in the description, but you can check out the Voice of the Martyrs at persecution.com.
So, real quick, we're gonna start doing this. This week's T-shirt sales will.
You guys are kind of in and out right now.
Shit.
Okay.
So we're gonna donate this week's T-shirt sales to the Voice of the Martyrs. So any shirt bought between today.
I'm getting about every fourth word. I'm getting a part of every fourth word right now.
We got you, Bill. Kent is explaining that we're going to start contributing to a charity of our guest's choice, with Voice of the Martyrs being yours. Proceeds from any of our T-shirt sales on Teespring.com will be donated to persecution.com or Voice of the Martyr. Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so go. Yeah, for those of you listening, go check out the link down in the description. Just with the rate and the time or flash to bang ratio for people hearing this podcast, Kent, I recommend let's kick that out to 2 weeks, man. So for the next 2 weeks, we will be providing any and all proceeds from our t-shirt sales to Voice of the Martyrs. So, Bill, thank you very much for that. If you haven't listened to the podcast before, folks, charity work is something that Kent and I both care very deeply about. Of course, you all know that we're very aligned with the whole Guns organization. So you've also got Racheal's Rest that was brought to our attention by the Complete Combatant. And so now we're happy to add Voice of the Martyrs to that list as well. So, Bill, again, thank you for that recommendation. Kent dropped out.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
So hopefully we can hear him now. Kent, give us a sound check.
Hello.
Kent, gotcha.
Holy
yeah, there we go.
I was saying so much insightful stuff, and poor Bill couldn't hear me. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what we're going to start doing. We're going to start donating T-shirt sale money to charities, and I think I heard TJ say we'll stretch it to 2 weeks because of the publishing rate and stuff like that. So that makes sense. But yeah, so we're gonna hit our guests with those final questions. So, Bill, man, as always, thank you so much for your time and so much for being willing to put in the energy tonight and, push off supper time with the family or whatever, send them kids down to the grandparents for a little bit or whatever. That was much appreciated on your part. Folks, all I can say is, like, if we're inviting somebody on our podcast, I think you should train with them. I don't know what else to say. We're not going to have a trainer on here that I don't recommend. So please join me next year at a time and date to be determined when we host Bill Rapier again here in Lewisburg, PA. And if you've wanted an opportunity to stab me, shoot me, or smack me, you can come out and do it during Bill's class. It'll be great. You can just all beat me up because everybody wants to. As far as our promos and socials and stuff here at Green Mountain Defense, thank you all who are still hanging in this chat. Please like, favorite, subscribe, and share both TJ's, mine, and our stuff. Right, all the links are there. We'd love to see you guys become regulars on this podcast. Give us a review on the iTunes or whatever podcatcher app you're using. The signal is being stunted because we're putting out conservative firearms man shit on the internet. So please help us unstunt the signal by interacting with our stuff. Just a simple thumbs up, yay, whatever. It's 2 seconds for you, means the world to us. So please do that kind of stuff. TJ can be found at Lead Slinging Ginger on Instagram and Facey Space and UWorld and all that kind of stuff. I am at Green Mountain Defense. We are at the Slinging Lead Podcast on Facebook and here on YouTube and Apple, Spreaker, Stitcher, all that cool stuff. We couldn't do what we do here without our affiliates and sponsors and friends. Thank you very much to the folks at Right On Optics for having TJ and I on our pro staff. We're sorry you got stuck with us, but somebody had to take us in, and it was you. So thank you very much for that. Also, check out greenmountaindefense.com/affiliates for everywhere else that you can go to help support our channel and what we're doing here. The bottom line is you're going to buy gun stuff anyway. If you're going to buy some gun stuff, go buy it through our links so that they give us pennies that we can convert into dollars, that we can convert into airtime here on the UWebs and the Apple worlds and so forth. So thank you very much for supporting us in that. And TJ, as always, dude, get us out of here, would you?
Happy to do it, Kent. So, Bill, once again, on behalf of Kent and myself, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us on this podcast that oozes in mediocrity. It's not much, but damn it, it's ours. And we are happy to have you, and we always like having a good guest who's willing to come out and help spread the good word. So thank you for joining us. Folks, if you're new to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely, man. We'll certainly have you back. As Kent said, you come on this podcast, you become a friend of the podcast. We will certainly have you back here in the near future. But folks, if you're new to the channel, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends. If you're missing us live on YouTube, you can always check us out on your favorite podcast player. Kent started to list them off, but frankly, if it's a podcast player, we're on it. So be sure to look for us there as well. Sling'N Lead Podcast. The name doesn't change and the content stays the same. Actually, I think we sound a little bit better on podcasts anyway because I can do some wizardry with it. Of course, Right On Optics, special shout out to them, rightonoptics.com. You can also purchase their optics through many of our affiliate links, Palmetto State Armory for one, Rainier Arms, so many out there. And as Kent said, if you're going to buy gun stuff anyway, you might as well use our links and support a channel that cares about you and wants to see you get better and become a more capable and responsible self-defender. With that, folks, that's all we have for this week. Until we see each other again, God bless you all. Take care of each other and get out and shoot.
Thanks, everybody.